Jerusalem to tremble at the birth of Jesus, no more than it would make sense to tremble when he is dying on the cross after he's lived his life on the cross, bleeding and dying. And in both categories, he is the weakest. But maybe the message is to those of us who are paying attention that God does his best work in our weaknesses. Maybe when we chronicle the story of Israel exiting Egypt and becoming exiled in this in-between place that we call wilderness, maybe that in-between place is the place that God has so designed, not just for Israel, but for all of us who find ourselves in an in-between place without the possibilities of using our own strength, of using our own know-how, our own intellect, our own money, because there are some places where I don't care how much money you have, it's not going to help you. You can't, because you can't buy your way out of some wildernesses, especially if God has designed it to put you in a position to weaken you to the point where your only hope of survival is him. And God does his best work. Just think about it. God does his best work when we are in our wilderness. And when we give up the fight ourselves, Michelle and Terrence and Tony and the other families who are present, when we cease to fight the fight ourselves and allow God to do God's thing for us in our in-between places, in our wildernesses, then we discover that he can rain bread from heaven. That water can come from a rock. We come to a new realization that God can do anything but fail. Oh yeah, God can do anything. Somebody asked during this Christmas season in the scripture, is there anything too hard for God? And the answer is no. There's nothing too hard for God. And so we stand today reassured, although your mother is ill, there's nothing too hard for God. There are other persons who are present today, and the doctor has said one thing and then another, and they're just about giving up on you. But I come by here to tell you today that there is nothing too hard for God. Help me bless somebody. Turn to your neighbor and look them right in the eye and tell them there's nothing too hard for God. Nothing. Nothing. Do you hear me? I don't care what it is. Nothing too hard for God. And there are some in-between places that God created. Listen in, Israel didn't create the wilderness. They thought they were leaving Egypt, going straight to the promised land. But God said, no, I need to shape you first. I need to make you. I need to mold you. I need to work on you. And the only way that I can do this is I've got to put some brakes on you. Listen. On this Christmas day, If I'm talking to you, you ought to holler out, have your way, Lord. You ought to say it until it makes you shout. Have your way, Lord. Work on me. Work on my mind. Massage my heart. Fix me. Fix me, Jesus. Break me if you must. And then make me all over again. And God was doing his best work when Jesus was in the cradle and when Jesus was on the cross. He was at his best. In fact, the only way that Jesus was going to survive is that God had to take care of him. My God, you want to know how you made it this far? I'm so happy you asked. The only way we made it this far is that God has been with us, Brother Turner, every step. Hey! Hey! Every step of the way. I'm not going to bother you too much longer, but you need to find you somebody else and tell he's been with me every step of the way. Every step of the way. When baby daddy wouldn't act right, he was with me every step of the way. When others walked out on me, he was with me every step of the way. Every